There's no like, hey, these are the obstacles that are going to be on your course beforehand. You walk in totally blind. And I think that's one of the things that makes ninja like such a challenging sport is that in your training, you're training for a course that you can't see.
Well, if that's not a metaphor for life, I don't know what is.
Right?
Welcome to The Lisa Show, where we take a good look at life. Hey, it's Lisa, and I want to give a shout out to Christy on Instagram who commented on our post about yes-anding our teenagers. And if you want to hear more about how to yes-and, listen to our episode with Kirby Hayborn. He had some really great ideas for connecting with teens, which I have also found also work for connecting with young adults, in-laws, and cranky neighbors. Great stuff. Anyway, Christy says, looking back, I think many of my biggest parenting mistakes came when I was reacting from fear. If I were to give my younger mom self-advice, it would be to try to be more mindful of the emotions behind why I am responding in this way. But of course, easier said than done, especially after an hour shopping trip with 3 kids in tow. I mean, come on, curbside pickup. Where were you then? Oh, Christy, I hear you, friend. I mean, kicking fear out of the parenting driver's seat is essential, as is grocery pickup. So thank you so much for your comment. Speaking of kids, do you remember when you were a little kid and people constantly asked you, what do you want to be when you grow up? Well, I remember very vividly as a 7-year-old thinking, a singer, teacher, mom, and wondering in the same breath, is that possible? Can you choose more than one thing? Then when I was in college, I added even more passions to my list. I was a biology major, but I also wanted to study philosophy. Eventually, I got a degree in English. I thought about being a painter for most of my life, and I still want to study that, but I just haven't put in the time. I fell in love with improvisation in college and didn't entertain the possibility that that was something that I might do for a career until I realized somewhere in my late 30s that I had used that skill more than any other in making a living. It felt accidental, even though it wasn't. Now, you may be able to imagine my curiosity then as I sat down and talked with my new friend, Gennady Page, who has done many different things for a living and not for a living. In this episode, Gennady is not only going to share how she found her life's passions, but she's going to share 3 beautiful and simple ideas on how we can all find our passion and purpose in life. I could tell you all about the incredible things that Gennady has done, but I wanted to talk to her about her process and the wisdom she's gained from it. Gennady is a stunning artist. She does photorealistic work that is rich with symbolism. She has a series right now that explores what it means to be a strong woman. Give yourself a little treat today and go to her website to check it out. As if being a talented oil painter isn't enough, Gennady is also an American Ninja Warrior. She has competed in this competition for several years and even runs her own ninja training program. She knows exactly what it means to be a strong woman inside and out. I mean, when you have a resume like that, how do you begin to introduce yourself to people? Well, Gennady's intro may be the coolest I've ever heard.
I'm an art ninja. I paint by day, I ninja by night or by morning. And I'm a wife and a mom. So I'm an art ninja mom.
Art ninja mom, Gennady. Wow. Like, does anybody have a cooler title?
I don't know. It is actually kind of funny because I studied with a man named Bill Whitaker. I painted with him long before I could even do a pull-up. This was like 2017. And we were working together, and I studied with him side by side for 9 months. And he'd look over at me and he'd say, Gennady, you're not like those fakers. You're like a real art ninja. This is something he repeated frequently. And I remembered being just like, Bill, like, where is this ninja thing coming from? We both know I'm not a ninja. Like, why do you keep calling me that? And he's like, well, Gennady, because I used to watch these black and white samurai films as a child. And there was this one where there was this village and they had to decide who were the fakes and who were the real ninjas. And you're like a real art ninja. Isn't that like, so
That's the coolest thing. Nothing like that ever happens to me. I want somebody to call me a ninja.
So it's crazy because he essentially christened me that long before American Ninja Warrior and all that came on the scene. But every time I step on stage as the art ninja, I smile and think of him.
I'm so curious. He calls you an art ninja. Does it plant the seed in your mind of like, well, what would it take to become a ninja? Because you were already an artist at that time.
So when I'm submitting my video, my professor had passed away. But all of a sudden, it was like I could hear him be like, Gennady, you always were an art ninja. And I'm just like sobbing as I'm clicking submit on my application for American Ninja Warrior. So
That
it was
is
Bill's
so
fault.
cool. Okay, so tell me more about that.
How does one go from being I was 34 at the time, 34-year-old mom, had 4 kids, to becoming a ninja?
Yeah, I do have that question. Not
Yeah,
gonna lie.
so honestly, my little brother invited me to go rock climbing with him at an indoor gym. And I was like, yeah, that sounds awesome. And so then I go and find out that in bouldering, which is rock climbing without a rope, the routes are called problems. And there was something about that that just like really struck my soul, that I could go and face my problems at the rock climbing gym. Anyway, I'm a gritty person, and I love in rock climbing how it's like 75% of the time you're falling. Like if you can,
I don't like that.
if you can
statistic.
send a climb on your first try, they call that flashing. If you flash a climb, it's too easy for you. It means you need to go up to the next level.
Okay.
Because
you
you're
gotta level up.
supposed to have to project it, which means like fall and fall until you get it right, kind of a thing.
But how long are we talking about falling here? Because that feels like you should never fall
No.
climbing a boulder.
Well, you're in a gym and there's a pad. So if you
Okay.
fall, you just fall on a mat. It's like you don't get hurt. But it's so beautiful because you actually learn through falling. It's like solving a puzzle and your body starts to figure it out and your body gains this muscle memory. So like you climb a few holds and then you fall. And then you climb a few holds and then you figure out one more move. And then your body remembers what you just did. And so like one move at a time. And then eventually you get to the top of the climb and you feel like a champion. Now, of course, when I first started, like just the baby climbs, they rate them on this scale from like V0 to like V16. And I was definitely at like V0. But it didn't matter. Like just the fact that it was hard when I started and then I eventually got it was just really encouraging and kind of addicting because you're like, well, this used to be impossible. And then I just sent it. And like, what else can I do? You know?
Right. So you just kept going and going.
So I
since that
started,
first day?
yeah, so I started climbing. But I was only into my climbing career like 3 months, which is, if anyone out there is a climber, you know that's like so infantile. And I'm at the climbing gym one day and I have a thought. You should apply for American Ninja Warrior. Like, I totally laughed. I was like, that's weird. The thoughts that come into your mind at the climbing gym. I mean, literally my only qualification at the time for applying to American Ninja Warrior was that I had once watched American Ninja Warrior. And so it was weird for me that I had this thought that was,
That's totally weird.
yeah, you
Out of
should apply.
nowhere.
Yeah. So I was just kind of pushed it aside. That was a weird thought and kept climbing. But every time I went to the climbing gym, this thought was persistent. And this is one thing that I've personally learned is that God is really persistent. And a lot of the times that when he asks us to do things, they're uncomfortable. And he will repeat the message multiple times.
Until
Because
you get it.
I usually give a hard pass the first time because it just sounds so absurd. I had this impression enough times that finally one day I offered a prayer that I never thought I would offer. But the thing was is that I spent enough time in my life like developing a relationship with God that when he told me yes, that I couldn't go back. It was
Yeah,
like,
it wasn't
well,
like you didn't ask. You asked.
it's like now I have to do it.
Do you want to answer or
Yeah.
not?
So honestly, that's why I did it. Just mainly because I felt like it was something God wanted me to do.
Gennady's journey to becoming an American Ninja Warrior started with falling in a rock gym, and she fell over and over and over again. There's something very familiar and even poetic about this idea. I mean, my problems may not be rock climbing routes, but I can relate to the idea of falling 75% of the time or making mistakes over and over again until I start to figure things out as a wife, as a mother, as an employee, a friend, you name it. I appreciate Gennady's perspective on falling, that it is an essential part of the process. Falling isn't failure. It's finding knowledge. If she didn't fall, she wouldn't learn the best routes for her climb. And at some point for every one of us, including Gennady, all of that falling can turn into reaching a bar that we never thought possible.
So in ninja, like the most basic move is called a lache. It's where you're like swinging on a bar, and then there's another bar that's 6 feet away. And you're supposed to swing from this bar, throw your body, and then catch that bar. Ugh. And I'm only like 5'7", so it felt impossible. My feet aren't 5 inches away from that bar. Like, how is it really possible for me to launch my body through the air? And it again required like a lot of falling, but eventually I caught that bar. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I thought that was impossible. What else do I think is impossible but is actually possible? Yeah. And that's basically the story of ninja. Every time I went to practice, I would just pick a new thing to try that seemed crazy. And I didn't always get it like that week. Sometimes it was a month later. Sometimes it was a year later. But eventually, you learn how to do the impossible.
Doing the impossible is a story of falling and catching. We make mistakes, we fall, we shake ourselves off, we start the process all over again. And then one day, it happens. We figure something out. We catch the bar, and then we try for a new goal. We repeat the falling and catching process until little by little, we do things or become things we never thought possible. Gennady's falling has led to some very significant moments of catching in her life, including her story of becoming an artist.
I grew up being academic. I wanted a full ride to college, and I played the piano. And I played the piano a lot. I thought I was going to study that in college too. And then the end of my junior year, I was living in Utah at the time, and my dad got a job in Colorado. And my parents knew all that they were going to ask me to give up moving my senior year, and so they said, we're going to let you make this decision. And so I just wrote in my journal, I prayed about it, and eventually came to the conclusion that God wanted me to move. And so I left everything and moved to this tiny town in Colorado. I went from like a class of 500 students to a class of 80. And when I went to go sign up for classes, the counselor, I was like, well, yeah, what do you want? What's your goals? And I was like, well, I want to be valedictorian and I need a full ride to college. So I need all your AP and honors classes. And she just looked at me and she was like, oh, sweetheart, we really don't do any of that here. And I was like, awesome. Okay, so for my senior year, I guess I'll take art. I don't know. I liked drawing, but I never saw myself as being like a painter, you know? So I took art, and like the first day of class, I had this teacher who gave us a sheet of paper with 16 squares, and she said, I want you to portray a different emotion in each square. But you can't use any known objects, so no hearts for love. You can use color, value, texture to show an emotion, but no objects. And I was like, this is weird. But she was trying to teach me that you can communicate with line, texture, color, yeah. So then she had us keep like an art journal. And I had started keeping a journal when I was like 10. And so to be introduced to art in the form of a journal just really spoke to my soul. Like, instead of writing how you feel, just go ahead and draw how you feel. And that practice lit my little heart on fire. I remember coming home and telling my mom, I'm going to be an artist. And I was drawing stick figures. I went to BYU, Idaho, and that was actually terrifying because just imagine taking art classes and you have to get A's. When like your whole life you've been trained to memorize information and take a test. Yeah. It's totally different.
It's completely different.
But the first day of freshman orientation, I'm sitting in this huge lecture hall and they show us a PowerPoint of previous student work. And that's when I knew that I was in the wrong place. Because I had absolutely no ability. You know, it's like when you're in this tiny little town in Colorado and you think, oh, I can be an artist. Yeah. And then you go to the university and you're like, actually, I can't. Actually, I can't do any of that.
Horrible mistake.
Yeah. So like I left that meeting in tears, like walking to my apartment and just thinking I'm going to have to change my major and like crossing this street in Rexburg. And I felt, Gennady, you can be an artist. And I just remember kind of looking up and being like, have you seen my work? I just was like, how? And I really felt like I'm going to help you. And so I had spent enough time developing a relationship with God that when he told me that he could help me, I believed him. And so I just started going to school and I would begin with a prayer and just say, okay, I showed up today to do the work. And if anything good is going to happen, we're going to really need you to show up too. So this is going to have to be like a collaborative effort. And that's how I got through school.
Starting college is hard for anyone, and having to move her senior year of high school, I can't even imagine. Jennedy had back-to-back experiences that must have given her that uncomfortable sensation of falling away from her friends, her home state, her academic plans, followed by falling headfirst into being a university art student imposter. Luckily, Jennedy caught hold of two very important things in this process. One, her love for art, and two, an awareness that God knew her and knew what she could become. And I think the reason God has been such a handhold for Jennedy is because she has crafted her life's climb with him. She invites him to show up for every ride, regardless of what it is. She's familiar with him. She's put in the time and effort, and now she has a working relationship with him that is humbling and inspiring to me. And it makes me consider what I'm doing to foster a relationship like that. This relationship with God and her relationship with art are what saved Jennedy from falling into oblivion when she lost her 3-year-old son due to a drowning accident.
I had a son named Victory Morgan who fell in a swimming pool in the fall of 2011. He was resuscitated, and then we spent 7 weeks in the hospital before he eventually passed away. And it's crazy, because he would be like 16 now. He was 3. So it's been some time. And I will say that it takes a long time. But what did I do? Well, when my son was in the hospital, I wrote in my journal, and I read those journal entries. It's all just this looking forward to this hope of God healing my son and waiting for this miracle to happen that I very well knew could happen.
Yep.
And then when it didn't pan out as I wanted, what did I do? Well, the truth was I knew too much. Like, I had spent too long having these experiences with a God who loved me to just turn my back and be like, see ya,
Yeah, I do know.
So instead, I just got up early in the morning and I wrote in my journal. And I read the scriptures and I prayed, and it was so painful. And I would go into my studio to paint in the morning early, and I would just like drip black paint across my canvas and just let the paint fall and just watch it and cry. It was like really depressing, but it was like I had all these outlets, I feel like, to deal with it, which was tremendous. People that go through loss, I'm always like, what's your outlet?
I do. I say the same thing too. Yeah. Tell me that you have some. I tell my kids that too after the passing of their father. Like, you lead into that creative outlet.
Yeah. And I also, I was a runner at the time. And so I would just go for these long runs and I would just weep while I ran. But all of those little things, like I play the piano and I would write and I would sing and I would paint and I would run, and all of those things I felt like helped take like a piece of it. I think what's interesting about grief is it's like an emotion, but you feel it so physically. I know I'm preaching the choir here, but I remember just like the weight of all of it, I literally felt it like on my shoulders. And having this realization, wait, is this like the rest of my life? Wait, this isn't like something that I'm going to pray and then you're going to take away. This is the rest of my life. How? One thing that I have found is that while that burden is I don't think ever really going to be removed until I am reunited with my son, that you can be strengthened to bear it. And so over just, muscle growth is so slow. Oh my gosh, it's so slow. It takes years. And I think most people, they work out for 6 weeks and they're like, I did the 6-week program. I am supposed to look different now.
Where are my six-pack
I'm like,
muscles?
Okay, just repeat that 30 times and you'll be there. Because it's so slow. And I think, should we be surprised that spiritual healing or spiritual growth takes time? No, it takes a long time. But what's so beautiful is that I really do feel like Jesus Christ in my life. I feel like He strengthened me so that though I carry this burden, it's not as heavy as it used to be. In the gym, I remember when I first started lifting weights, this was back in 2017, and I'd pick up 5-pound weight and be like, oh yeah. And then slowly you grow up to 10 pounds and you're like, oh my gosh. But if I picked up a 25-pound weight then, it would have been like, oh my gosh, I can't eat, this is so heavy. And now it's like, oh, I can just curl 25 pounds, And it's because you put in the work and you've shown up every day and you get stronger. And I feel like spiritually, you got to put in the work, you got to show up every day, and you get stronger. It's the same.
There is no magic formula for grief. Trust me. It has a life and personality and rule book of its own. Just when you think you're doing better, you'll find yourself falling untethered into the abyss. For Jennedy, what caught her from this free fall was her art and her unfailing trust in God. Now, to be clear, God hasn't made Jennedy's pain go away, but he has made Jennedy better able to bear it. He strengthened her and pointed her toward the art that could help catch her. One painting in particular has meant the most to Jennedy in her healing process, and that's the nativity that she entitled Little Lamb. If you haven't seen this painting yet, Jennedy depicts the baby Jesus lying in a limestone manger. He is wrapped in swaddling bands, and his adorable face gazes into the light. The painting is powerful, and so is its backstory.
A couple years after my son had passed away was like, I should do a nativity painting. And it's funny because I thought, no, I had made a personal goal to never do biblical work. But I couldn't shake it. And so finally, you pray about it and you're like, okay, fine, I'll read Luke 2. And then I read it, and then all of a sudden I'm like, well, it is pretty simple. It's just like Mary and a baby in a manger and swaddling bands. That's it. So I looked at my friends and found one that was pregnant with a boy. And I was like, when your son is 7 days old, I will come for him. And
that's how I regularly talk to my friends.
Yeah. And then in the research of it, I found out that the manger is made out of limestone. I was totally unaware of this at the time. And they didn't collect and store hay because grass grew year-round. And that the mangers were used for water. And that the swaddling bands were embroidered. And I learned all these things. I'm like, whoa, like I've seen a lot of nativity paintings, but I'm not sure I've ever seen a baby in embroidered bands in a stone manger without hay. So I, after that research, put all these pieces together and started working on this painting that I titled Little Lamb. And it was so funny because I was working and just so excited about all these things that I'd learned, and I was almost out of the painting, and then another thought comes into my mind. Jennedy, you're totally missing the point. Jennedy, when else in his life will he be wrapped in white linen and placed on a stone? I sent my son wrapped as the great and last sacrifice. Like I put him on an altar from the first day. And then it only been like 2 years since I had buried my son. And thinking about God and how he sent his son in that way, that I just wept as I thought about like God so loved the world. And then I just kind of had this feeling like, do you know what it's like to have your son on the altar, Jennedy? And so I think that painting probably will go down in Jennedy Page history as probably like one of the most tender gifts from God as far as my art's concerned.
Little Lamb is a stunning painting. The sweetness in baby Jesus' face just hits me in my mama heart every time. But this wasn't just a painting for Jennedy. It was a way to catch her from her grief. Little Lamb was a double gift from heaven to Jennedy. God gifted her with the artistic talent to do it. But through that process, he also gifted her understanding regarding the loss of her son. I think we would all love to have a talent or passion that yields such incredible outcomes. I have some passions that just won't cut it. I'm looking at you, snack food and Netflix. But I also have passions like improv and meeting new people that have blessed my life immeasurably. But what if you don't currently have a passion? What if you don't know what your talents are? Or what if you find yourself stuck in a rut? What then? Jennedy has been there and has one very important first tip for all of us in these situations.
I feel like I was a blank canvas. I didn't know who I was. If you would have told me when I was 30 that by the time I was turning 40, I was going to have competed on like 4 seasons of American Ninja Warrior,
crazy.
I would have never believed you. Or if you would have told me when I was 12 that I was going to grow up to be a professional oil painter, also never would have believed you. And so honestly, the best recommendation I can give people is to get to know God. Because I find that as I spend time personally trying to get to know him, he introduces me to who I am. Because he knows me a lot better than I know myself. So he's the one that's like, hey, maybe you should move. Maybe you should study art. Maybe you should, and that when you have these feelings inside you, because I feel like a lot of us have these Like we know what we want sometimes. I teach art workshops, right? So I have women all the time that were like, oh my gosh, I've wanted to oil paint like my whole life, And then they come and they learn how to paint. But don't be afraid of following those feelings. Like the mentor that I talked about, Bill Whitaker, at the beginning, that's something he always told me was, Gennady, follow your feeling. And it's hard because a lot of the times it's uncomfortable. I feel like God is constantly trying to pull me out of my comfort zone. Why? Because we don't grow in the comfort zone.
No, don't say that.
And
like true.
Even like physically speaking, like our muscles cannot grow without tearing. If you just do what
so violent.
I know. But like seriously, like the muscle tears and then it repairs stronger, better adapted, right? And it's like if you always do the same thing that you've always done, you're not going to get stronger. Like you have to increase the load. And I feel like God just, if you let him, I feel like he will give you growth opportunities.
Gennady's first tip in finding new purpose or passion in life is a big one. Get to know your maker. Gennady says he can help us discover potential we never knew we had. He knows us better than we do, and he can catch us from falling into complacency with opportunities to change and get stronger. But Gennady says if we want to know what God has in store for us, she has a second tip for us. Pick up a pen and a notebook.
One thing that I also have to add to this, like people seeking a passion or what should they do with the rest of their lives kind of a thing, is I am the biggest advocate for writing. I feel like in religion, we talk a lot about prayer and reading the Word of God, which is really important. But writing for me is like essential. It's an essential piece because it's where you synthesize everything, And so I feel like if we're just going like day to day living our lives, do we even take time to think about where we want to be in 10 years? Like, do we even think about what we're feeling? And if you take a minute just to sit down and write, you can write things you're mad about. You can write things you're sad about. You can write things you're happy about. You can write about things that you want to become. But for me, it's where I take what I hear in prayer or discover what I want to say in a prayer, or I take what I learned from reading the Word of God and then apply it. And it's where all this magic happens for me is in my journal. And so I recommend to everybody, if you haven't tried journaling, it's amazing. Also, I get all of my ideas for my paintings from the same process.
Tip number 2 to finding purpose and passion: keep a journal. As a former English teacher, it makes me giddy to think that so much of the artistic and athletic things Gennady has done all started with writing. I've preached the power of the written word for decades, and there's something about filling an empty notebook with ideas that reminds me of what we all want to become, blank pages that have been filled with possibilities. I guess you could say that what matters way more than picking up a heavy weight or a new skill is picking up a pen. Inspiration and ideas can emerge as we journal on the page. We may find new personal vistas through Heaven's help, but we can also find the help we need to make room for our pastimes and our responsibilities. I don't know about you, but there never seems to be enough hours in the day to do everything I want to do. When I asked Gennady about how she balances her life, she said she has a painting in mind that illustrates this, and it's all about seeing juggling in a new way.
I think balance is a lie.
I do too. I'm glad to hear you say that. That was actually a test.
Yeah, thank you.
And how have you approached it all?
Yeah, well, in Ninja, we practice balance a lot. Mm-hmm. And sometimes balance looks like dramatic shifts where you're like,
in your body,
and we're going to right, and we're going left. And sometimes balance looks like really small, like movements. And I feel like that in my life. Like this summer, I've taught a bunch of workshops. So I'll have a whole week where I'm in my studio from like 9 to 6 and I have like serious mom guilt. But then the next week, I take all of my kids and my husband, we go climbing for a week in Idaho. So that's like a dramatic shift. But during the school year, it's get up, coach a ninja class, come home, get your kids off to school, go to the studio, just work until they get out of school. And then it's full on running all the errands that moms do, piano and violin and climbing class and all that. And
it's a full day.
I don't watch a lot of TV.
I'm so sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Yes, some things have to give.
Yeah, and it requires constant flexibility.
Yeah.
Constant.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure you have to negotiate your time and energy in different ways, but
you
also don't know, and a lot of times, especially with creative pursuits, what's coming next.
Most of the time I accept them because there's these really beautiful opportunities. And so you just say yes, and then you pray that the Lord's going to be there to help you. And in fact, there's this painting that I wanted to do for a long time. So this is like a little preview.
Oh, I like
One
it.
day when you see the actual painting, you'll be like, I remember when Jenny was talking about this on the Lisa show.
Is here first.
Yeah, is of like a woman juggling balls and then angels like from the top of the composition grabbing a couple of them and just titling it like When Heaven Helps You Juggle. Because I feel like that's my life.
This is emotional survival gold. Don't waste your time fretting about balance. Balance is a myth, and juggling life takes a lot more hands than our own. If it were only up to me to keep everything in the air, I guarantee it would look like I was standing in a Playland ball pit. The ground around me would be littered with balls that fell because I didn't have the time or ability to catch them. But we all have access to help, and that is such a comforting and empowering idea. Now, lest we think we can all just wake up tomorrow, do some journaling, find our life's work, and be incredibly good at it, well, Gennady says we'll probably find ourselves dangling from life's pull-up bar for a while until we figure out how to get above it. Here is her third tip for finding passion and purpose.
Yeah, and the inner critic might be saying, you're just hanging from a bar. This doesn't even matter. But guess what? Hanging from a bar matters. I actually made the New Year's resolution in 2017 that I was going to learn to do a pull-up. And it took me almost a whole year. And I just put a bar over the door to my bedroom. And when I was putting laundry away, like when I was just, anytime I walked under the door, I would just hang on it for a minute. And then eventually you start to pull your shoulders back. That's called a shoulder shrug. And then you do that enough times, and then eventually you get your chin over the bar. And I think that so many people are stopped from doing all kinds of amazing things because they don't see the value in the try, because they can't yet do. And so I really want to do a painting for my Strong Women show that just shows a person that's not fit hanging from a bar, just with all their mental intention leading towards the bar, but not yet getting there, because it matters to try in all aspects of your life.
I've dangled from a lot of metaphorical bars in my life, and I'm dangling from others as we speak. But I love that there's value in the try. After all, trying is something we can all do. Can I get a motherhood amen? There's a reason why Gennady pointed this out as a third tip we can use when searching for passion and purpose. The very act of dangling can work our muscles and prepare us for bigger moves in life. Sure, it may feel like we're on the brink of falling, but hanging from that bar is the first step to getting our chin over it. It's all about being willing to grab hold of the bar in the first place, even if we don't look great doing it. When I thought of having Gennady on the show, I thought our episode would all be about doing ninja warrior tricks and painting award-winning canvases. And it was intimidating. I mean, she's an incredible, strong woman. But what our interview taught me is that success means a lot of falling first. For everything that Gennady makes look easy, she's experienced a lot of struggle and pain and loss. But all of that falling has created one of the most inspiring stories of catching I know. The best part is there are tricks we can all do without having to go to a ninja gym. First, we can get to know God and ask Him to guide us to our passions and our purpose. Second, we can journal it out and find answers on the page. And third, we can dare to dangle, knowing there is always value in the try. Finding our next passion may take a little time, but these are the things we can be passionate about in the meantime.
The Lisa Show is a production of BYU Radio, hosted by Lisa Valentine Clark. This episode was produced by Erica Price, with help from Kenny Mears, with music and post-production by Kip Merrill. We'd like to thank our guest, Gennady Page. Be sure to check out her website, gennadypage.com. Links will be in our show notes. If you haven't subscribed to The Lisa Show on YouTube, you can find even more content on our channel, including the Council of Moms, filmed live in our studio. As always, thanks for your messages. We read them all. And thanks for listening.